It almost seems these days as though everybody has experienced trauma. Like we use the word trauma to literally describe everything. This whole idea of like therapy talk. If a guy is on a first date talking about, oh, look, this is really hard for me to tell you, but like, I go to therapy because it's really great. Keep those blinkers wide open for people who may use that as a way to try and prove that they are something that they're not. Hi guys, and welcome back to another episode of Life Uncut. I'm Laura.
I'm Brittany. I'm giving The Rock today, aren't I?
Why?
I looked at myself in the mirror when I got ready and I didn't have time to change. And I was like, wow, I look like The Rock in that really famous photo.
Does The Rock wear Dolce & Gabbana?
No, but he wore a bum.
Gucci?
He wore a bum bag. This is exactly that photo. And I actually had a chain around my turtleneck that I've got on. I had a chain and I was like, I can't do it.
Does The Rock wear Gucci Crocs?
You realise that The Rock is the richest man in Hollywood? Yeah, he does. That's the photo.
But he wears black. It's the one that everyone goes as Halloween.
It's because of the belt and the coloured jeans with a turtleneck. That's why I was like, it's giving Rock.
And your bulging deltoids.
And the dick, the ball.
Now that you've said this, if you just put a bum bag on,
Thank you.
complete look.
100%. And I was like, I probably have time to quickly put a different top on, but I was like, just going to lean in.
But hot rock.
Hot Rock?
Hot rock.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Like hot, well, I mean, that's very, what is it, 80s? What'd one say? Is The Rock from the 80s?
90s.
Britt, you look
I look
great.
like The Rock.
You look great today.
Thank you.
You have been saying, which I wanted to know because this is what always happens. Whenever something funny happens in our lives, we're like, I'll tell you on the podcast.
Oh.
And so I've been wanting to know what it is that you've been keeping secret from me.
It's not a secret, but I just had this, it was funny. I had this realization and had to chuckle to myself out loud. And I wanted to tell you guys straight away because it involves you a little bit. But then I was
But
like,
not
I'll
enough.
save it for the pod. No. So Ben and I, in the last little week, sent out like save the date kind of wedding invites.
Yeah, got it. Thank you for
And
that.
so just to double down, yeah, you haven't responded yet.
I did. I RSVP'd straight away.
Okay.
I was probably the first person to RSVP with Matt. RSVP'd
Okay, I'll take that
to
back.
all events, all three. I RSVP'd to the Brittany and Ben Spectacular. Okay, every single one.
Okay, it's a couple of days. Don't be dramatic.
To the 5-day fucking affair. I'm at every single thing.
It's 1 month. It's 28 events.
You want me at the
Okay.
breakfast, the brunch, and the dinner? I am there, girlfriend.
Wait, I haven't even given you all of it yet. So for anyone that's new, half of our wedding is foreign and half is Australian. So Ben is Swiss, but he's also lived a lot of the time over in the UK and in Germany and wherever else. So a lot of his people are coming from that kind of part of the world.
When you said half of the wedding is, you made it sound like it's a traveling circus. We're going to do half of it in Australia, then we're going to take it.
It's a world tour. It's a tour. Well, it could be. It's going to be a wonderful wedding. But yeah, so half, all of his side, none of them Australian on his side except me. So we sent the invites out and Ben's like, babe, I've been getting like these random messages about the wedding. Just like yesterday, one of my friends messaged me and went, dress code, ? And so Ben wrote back and was like, oh yeah, sorry, Britt set the dress code. And he was like, okay.
He's like, but what is it?
Done. No, because we put the dress code on there. Done. Nothing. A day later, one of his other friends gets a message. Hey, mate, the missus wants to ask about the dress code, ? A couple of days go past and I haven't heard about it yet. I don't hear about them individually. But after he got a couple, he's like, it's so weird. People keep asking me about the dress code. And I'm like, that is weird. I was like, because our dress code is not, like, it's pretty standard. This happens 4 or 5 times. And then one of his female friends messages, hey, I just wanted to follow up about the dress code. And he's like, yes, what is the problem? Britt wrote the dress code. I think it's okay. And she was like, well, how strict is it? And he was like, well, pretty strict, I guess. It's what she's decided she wants. And she's like, well, what if it doesn't go with my dress? And he's like, I'm sure whatever's going to go. He was like, I was so confused. He's like, I'm sure it's going to be fine.
Brittany's like, only if you're wearing Gucci Crocs.
And
The end.
she goes, well, I just think it's a bit extreme. And he was like, I don't understand what the problem is. He's like, I'm sorry, the dress code's not extreme. And I think that you'll figure it out. And this goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I'm not involved yet, right? He sends me this conversation. And then she goes, well, I don't understand how she's going to know if I wear it. And he's like, she's going to know. She's going to see it. And she's like, well, that's a bit perverted. And he's like, I don't understand. And she's like, who in their right mind would make us wear and enforce no thongs? And then Ben it was like, they're going to be on your feet. She'll see them. And she went, hang on, feet? And he was like, yeah, your feet. And she was like, but a thong is a G-string. And he was like, oh my God, there is a language barrier here. So Ben calls me and he goes, babe, half of the wedding things you've said they're not allowed to wear G-strings, strict enforcement. So I had to get
Full briefs or nothing.
Bridget Jones's or nothing. And it makes so much sense why so many people were messaging him being like, dress code ?
Do you remember when it was our wedding? So like when Matt and I got married, we made one of those like, I don't know, like is it a wed shed or a wed whatever? It's like you go online and you fill it all out online.
Yeah.
And you put all of the information for the wedding on like a little website,
Yeah,
right?
that's
And
what I did.
Yeah, it's the same type of thing. And so that's where you put your dress code and everything.
Yeah, except Britt and I never got it.
Yeah.
Well, probably a good thing. So we made this website and I didn't realize that like, because it was pre-COVID and like we're pretty fucking unorganized and I asked Matt to fill out half of it and I filled out half of it. Part of his thing to fill out was the dress code. And he had just like, because you have to populate before you can move on to the next page. So he populated some things without it being serious, just so that we could flick through to the next page to put all the important information in. And he had every intention to go back and fix those things.
It's like a placeholder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Except he didn't go back and didn't fix those things. And so we sent out our wedding invitation with the dress code, dress sexy. And that went out to
okay, though. That's
my
all
nana.
I like that.
To my nana. Dress sexy.
That's okay. Ben's nana got no G-strings.
He must have thought you were going to have one of those mirrored aisles.
I am.
Also, at what age do you reckon you stop wearing a G-string? Like, because it would. I can't imagine. I mean, bless her. She's gone now. But I couldn't imagine Nana wearing a G-string.
I can't imagine my nana wearing a G-string. I don't know.
When do you give up? When do you say, not for me anymore? I want
Maybe
my
when
ass
you-
to be hugged forever.
I don't think it's your ass, to be honest. I think it's your lips.
Like it's and they're falling out the sides.
I think when it gets a bit like more relaxed down there, I want to say relaxed over looser, but like
Gravity.
when it ages, gravity takes over. I imagine that would be super uncomfortable.
You know, when you said that, the only thing I thought straight away was, oh, someone's going to be angry at you because you said lips and not
Totally.
labia.
Get
Someone's
over
going to
it.
be so mad that you didn't say vulva.
Yeah, but then when we say labia, we get in trouble too. Stop talking about Laura's labia being cut off. Sorry, if she wants it cut off, she's allowed. But I had to go back onto the website and then I updated the wedding invitation. So I kept it all the same. It still says like no thongs. But then I had to write in brackets, for all you Europeans, thongs means flip-flops. You can in fact still wear a G-string. That's what I wrote and then I sent that out. So now I updated
So now
it.
that's gone to Ben's nan.
So now Ben's nan, I have confirmed that if she wants to, she can wear a G-string. No, actually, that Ben's nan has passed away, but he has other people. Why? She got rest in peace.
She can wear whatever she wants.
I know. I felt bad making the joke about his nan, and then I was like, she's not here anymore. But yes, it went out to a lot of people it shouldn't have gone out to.
Blessed be.
How was your weekend?
Long and interesting and full of things that I don't even know how to start this.
What, you and Matt
I'll
had
start
sex? Is that what you're trying to say?
Long and hard.
And full of
And
interesting.
interesting. Nah, missionary's not that interesting, to be fair.
And
no,
he's not that long and hard.
No.
Okay, that's just a
he's
joke.
doing right.
You
Anyway.
don't have to give us the
Too far?
specifics. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. So,
How was your weekend anyway?
okay. So my weekend was great. It was very long because it was like, well, it wasn't really the long weekend, but we went down to Ulladulla on Thursday and had 4 nights down south. And so if you guys are not following, or if you don't follow social media, you might not know this, but Matt and I, we are renovating a house down in Ulladulla. It's about 3 hours drive from Sydney.
Yeah.
So we went down there on the weekend, and if you listen to last week's episode, it's kind of like beautiful synchronicity that happened. So last week on Tuesday ep, I was talking about how Matt and the kids and I had all been to this reptile park and how I am sick for the reptiles.
Yeah, you do love a reptile.
I love them. What a great reptile park. I should go there one day. But never as a non-parent did I get myself there. But on the weekend, I went with Matt, I went with the kids, and it was like dreams come true. I had so much fun. I love reptiles.
I love reptiles. I love reptiles.
So the reptiles heard. They listened to Life Uncut and they got the memo, the 411. They know that I love the snakes.
Did they leave a review?
Yeah.
Because otherwise I don't want to know about it.
5 stars. Here from the reptile park.
What happened?
Okay.
I mean, I know
well,
what
you fucking know what happened. Don't pretend like you're shocked. Brittany, what happened?
Just trying to move it along. I'm a listener.
So we go down to the house on Saturday and we were cleaning up the gardens. And about halfway through the day, as we were walking down the side of the house, this massive python, and I'm talking like almost 2-meter python, is slithering up the fence line.
And
of
Matt
the
was
house.
still inside.
And it wasn't Matt's python, surprisingly. Unfortunately for him. So it was slithering up like between the border between our property and the neighbours. And the neighbours had come out to look at it as well. And they were all making jokes like, oh, whose house is it going to go into? Not
You're like, yours, motherfucker.
yeah, not a funny joke. Anyway, it went into the bushes, and because we'd cut down a couple of like dead trees, and so I, for a minute, thought maybe we had cut down its home, like we'd cut down where it had been living, and so it was feeling a bit displaced because it was quite cute. Nah, not cute.
It was like 20 meters long. It wasn't cute. It could eat you.
No, it's not a boa constrictor. It was a diamond python. Hot. And so it was in the bushes and it was like hanging down, and we were cleaning up. We were watching it for half the day. And I kept saying to Matt, do you think we should get a snake catcher out? Do you think we should get a snake catcher? He's like, no, it's fine. Like, it's in the bush. Let it go. Anyway, we had stopped paying attention to the snake for a while and we were still cleaning up this back area. And I look up, and as I look up into the tree, the fucking snake has climbed up, and there's this one bit where the tree is like a little bit close to the roof of the house, and it is just long, skinny neck is reaching out from the tree, and it's trying to get towards the hot tiles of the roof. And before we could stop it, I went and I got the broom, and I was trying to.
Stop it. What were you going to do?
Well, I was trying to broom it out of the roof. So I had the broom handle, and I was trying to gently, because I don't want to hurt it because I love snakes. So I was like trying to like get it out of the roof. Anyway, I knocked it once and then it didn't like that. And so then it just went a bit faster. And all of a sudden, this big ass, which it had just eaten because it had a big fat belly, had crawled into the roof of our house. So at that point, I was like, cool, Matt, I think we should probably call the snake catcher now.
I think we should probably burn down the house.
We need to move.
live here anymore.
I'm just thinking about the fact that you have a small cat.
Yeah, it's not good for Raspberry. Hey.
Haven't seen Raspberry in a few days.
Not,
Speaking of.
not good for the cat. Also not good if we have a newborn either. That's not funny. Like,
No, you better not do it.
So I get this number for a local snake catcher, right? His name's Dusty. Dusty from Nowra. Props to you. I reckon he's not a listener. But anyway, so I call him up and it's almost like he's an old English man. He goes, hello, my darling. No, hello, my dear. But kind of like cross between a leprechaun. Hello, me dear. I was like,
So he's Irish?
I don't know.
Is this man real?
He's
Were you
real.
watching Lord of the Rings?
He's real. And I was like, look, we've got a snake in the roof. Can you come out and help me? And he was like, what would you like me to do about it? And I was like, get it the fuck out of my roof, please. He goes, okay, send me a video. So I send him a video of the snake and he calls me right back and he goes, a diamond python. It's beautiful. Now explain to me, darling, why do you want to get it out of the roof? And I was like, because I think it's living there. And he goes, yes, you are right. It has been. It's its home. I would even bet it's been there for many years. You probably have lots of snakes in your roof because they like to live together. And I was like,
my
Dusty, I
God.
think you need to understand that this is horrifying for me. And we are kind of vibing on a different frequency right now. I said, oh, look, I don't think it's going to come out anytime soon because I think it's just eaten.
My cat.
And Dusty goes, no, my dear, I don't think it's eaten. I think it's pregnant. And isn't that splendid? I was like, Dusty, you're fucked.
Because have you seen a snake give birth? It doesn't have one.
15 to 20 eggs.
And then some. The size of that python, I reckon she's having 50. I reckon you're going to have 50 from my python experience.
Brittany the python tamer. That was from a different phase of life though, and it wasn't a python.
I reckon it's going to have like 50 baby pythons. Imagine if you have 50 of those big giant things in your
Yes,
room.
I know. That is exactly how I felt. And so Dusty pretty much told me he couldn't help me because he couldn't access the python through the manhole of the roof. And so the python is just there. He's just living in the roof, chilling,
To be
grilling,
fair,
being a python.
I don't think they actually, I know we're like laughing. I don't think they actually do much. I think they're actually really good in terms of they eat the rats.
This
and
is
they-
what Dusty said. Dusty was like, just think about it. You'll never have any vermin or mice.
Or pets.
How wonderful. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
not good for Raspberry, but we do have a massive python and it is living in the house. So
I
I'm
think
not
let
thrilled.
him be.
I'm never coming.
We did have like really cool plans for long weekends down there, but it's just not going to happen now.
Where does he get out of? Is there an obvious hole?
Gutter. Well, no, at the moment the house is in all states of deconstructed, so there's many holes.
Do the people who were doing the construction know? Because
So-
they're about to get a real jump scare.
Yeah, that was the problem. So we called our builder, who is an absolute legend, like this dude who's got 4 kids. He was like, his name's Tom, and we called him and I was like, hey, this is not good times. And he rocks up in his truck with his 4 children and his wife
To look at it.
to come and try and get out of the roof because he was worried about his workers and then
Or were they
getting
just
scared.
jealous of the reptile park and they thought, this is our chance?
It's a free reptile park.
Free reptile party. Now, you guys know, or you might not know, but you will now. I am a sucker for Love is Blind. So Love is Blind, if you haven't seen it, it's like a very modern dating show where there's a bunch of men and a bunch of women and they go into these pods that are separated. Pods, it's just a room, right? But they go into these pods that's separated by these walls. The men are on one side, the women on the other. You go 1 woman per room, 1 man per room, and you talk to each other and you get to know each other and you write things down. You can send gifts through the room and stuff, but you never get to see each other.
One might think that it's based on the premise that someone's personality is more important than the way they look.
It's exactly what it is. The whole idea is love really blind? That's the question they pose.
The antidote to online dating, maybe?
Yeah, so it's like speed dating without seeing the other person. So all the people move between the pods, you get to speak to whoever you want, and then you form these connections, then you decide if there's like maybe 1 or 2 people that you want to pursue. Then at the end, you have to have chosen your person blindly still. Then you get to meet. But the idea is you propose. You're getting married. You are getting married without having seen each other. Then you go on a honeymoon. Everyone goes, and that's where sometimes the drama starts to happen because maybe one person might have had a connection with someone else, but chose the other person, but then when they see them, they're more physically attracted to the other person. Then it's like, do they leave? Do they swap partners? Do they commit? It gets spicy. The reason I wanted to talk about this is there's one particular scene that happened episode 2 at the very start between 2 people, Stephen and Monica, that sort of stopped me in my tracks a little bit. And I had to rewind it and say, did I just hear that correctly? So this happened in episode 2, season 7, straight at the start of episode 2, Stephen and Monica, they have a conversation that really got me thinking about therapy talk and are people using therapy talk to manipulate situations.
Here's what I believe. You like someone for their qualities, but you love someone for their flaws.
I've always been drawn to flaws.
Believe me, girl, I've
Same.
been the same way.
Yeah.
Actually, my most recent relationship, since, we're already getting into this,
Yeah,
I
let's do
will
it.
divulge something that I am not very proud of at all.
Yeah.
But I wear this brand, and I think it's very important to be honest about it.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about cheating.
Yep.
I technically hold the title of being a cheater. I've been cheated on multiple times as well. I believed that this person that I was dating at the time, I believed I didn't deserve her. Everyone has a different concept of cheating. One person's could be, looking at someone. Someone else's could be an actual physical act. I basically slid into a girl's DMs like a dumbass, and we were
Then I sent them to a
flirting
vagina.
with intention. You're emotionally cheating at that point. I got caught, which I knew I would. I was very disappointed with myself.
I'm so
And there was a lot
sorry.
we went through therapy. We figured it out. I'm actively in therapy to talk about these things.
And by the way, I really appreciate you sharing with me, and I want you to feel like you can tell me anything. Like, we're all human. I'm 36 years old. Like, it's not so black and white.
Right.
The experiences that I've had to deal with from cheating are, whew, they are
How's
like
the music?
really gross and very, very bad. And even in those situations, I've always found a path to forgiveness.
I love how he's managed to victimize himself in that cheating situation. Like, he's the one who acted outside of the relationship. And obviously, I know there's many reasons why people cheat. We've talked about that a load of times. But in that one conversation, he managed to make himself the victim and gain her pity for his cheating.
Oh, 100%. But even the way he set it up, you can tell he knows what he's doing. This is what I think. I think he 100% knew what the outcome was going to be. He was being vulnerable. He dropped that he went to therapy. He dropped that he only did it because he didn't feel like she was good enough because she was such a queen. And also when he says he's a cheater, so he says, you know, I want to talk about cheating. I cheated, but I've been cheated on loads of times too. Like he didn't even sit in I'm a cheater. He quickly went straight to, but I've been cheated on loads of times as well.
He went straight to I'm a victim.
He went straight to I'm a victim. And I had to rewind the whole scene. And I wonder how many people would have watched that and had an issue with it. There are some online threads going around, so I know that people have.
Interesting you bring up the online commentary, because I saw some things on Facebook groups and that kind of thing for Love is Blind that were very divided. And half of the people were like, hang on a second, he just made himself exactly how we all felt. You know, he just made himself the victim in a narrative where he was actually the person doing the wrong thing. But the other half of people were saying, at least he's honest about it. Like, at least he's kind of coming forward with this information and she doesn't need to ask him these questions, and he's being truthful about his past experiences.
But I also think that that's been reflected recently in the whole David Grohl thing. Foo Fighters, if you guys are across it, which I'm sure you are, he has fathered a child outside of his 20-something year marriage. And the social discourse around that was so interesting because some people were like, wow, what a flog. He cheated on his wife and had a baby with an adulterous affair. But the other part of the conversations was, well, at least he came out and he was honest and he's acknowledged the baby and he's going to be a good dad. What a great guy.
He's taking accountability for it.
Accountability. It is fascinating to me the way in which we are able to frame some things, and we can frame our shortcomings in a way that garner empathy and garner sympathy. And I'm not saying that this is black and white, because I do think that there are absolutely instances where someone's shortcomings and the things that they do that might hurt someone else very well can be the byproduct of the unfortunate situations that they've experienced themselves. But I do think that the language that's used is a way in order to gain favor, especially in this instance. As someone who hasn't seen the series, it got me thinking about an article I read recently, which was from Glamour. Now, it was from last year, but the article itself was talking about how a lot of women prefer to date men who are either in therapy or who have gone to therapy, because it shows that they are more emotionally in touch and that they're working on themselves and their own mental health. So I was speaking to Matt about this and I was like, surely then if it is known that this is a desirable attribute that some women want, that women want men who are more emotionally in touch, surely this is something that can then be used as a way to kind of garner affection or get a woman over the line in terms of dating and to win favors. And Matt was like, talking about therapy is akin to talking about puppies. He's like, it is a green flag. If a guy is on a first date talking about, oh, look, this is really hard for me to tell you, but I go to therapy because it's really great. I think that there's a fine line between endorsing it, which we obviously do on this podcast, and we talk about how amazing it is to be able to go do therapy and be able to have moments to talk about yourself and work on your mental health. But I also think keep those blinkers wide open for people who may use that as a way to try and prove that they are something that they're not.
100% men know now. The bar is higher for what I think for a lot of women's expectations on men. And reading the article, so many women were like, I will only date somebody if they go to therapy. Like, that is my prerequisite when I write my list of things I'm looking for. Tall, dark, handsome, men in finance, blue eyes, therapy. That's what they're adding. And I just think that that's a little bit excessive to make that a non-negotiable.
I question why that might be the case, because I think that the implication is that they are potentially at least more aware, perhaps, of their emotions if they're going to therapy. I mean, there will be exceptions. Some are court-mandated therapy, but
always.
But I'm trying to think about the positives as to why women would be like, I want a guy who has been to therapy. And I think it's all about taking accountability for your own shit. And I think that it is somewhat dangerous for us to equate going to therapy with actually owning stuff and taking accountability for behavior. I don't think that these things automatically align. I do think it would be implied that they were perhaps slightly more aware of their shortcomings if they were going to therapy, but you also don't know why they're going.
I also really want to be careful with this because I don't want this to sound at all like we're stigmatizing people who do go to therapy or people who talk about the fact that they go.
No, of course
And I
not.
think it's really important because, like, it's not just gendered. There are a lot of very conscious and intentional men out there who are going to therapy and it has been hugely beneficial to them. And they don't feel shame around talking about it. And therefore, that's the reason why they've brought it up. I think it's more so for me, this whole idea of like therapy talk is when someone has learnt the language, they've learnt the tools, they're not actually implementing it in their life, but they use it as a way to make themselves sound smarter, to make themselves seem like they are superior or authoritative in a way. And that almost like diminishes, especially within a relationship as well, it diminishes the thing that the other person might be experiencing because they're using terminology that is linked to therapy or linked to like psychoanalyzing someone. The example of this, and where I think we've seen it more recently in like social discourse, is the situation with Jonah Hill last year. So last year we saw Jonah Hill, we did a big episode on it, all around him using the word boundaries to set limitations on his ex-girlfriend, Sarah Brady, who he'd said, "It's my boundary that you don't go and surf with other men." And
It's my boundary that you don't post a bikini photo.
It's my boundary that you behave in a way that I expect you to. And we unpacked on that episode this conversation around how a boundary is a limitation for yourself. It can't be a limitation for someone else. And that to me reeked of someone who had been to therapy, had learnt the tools, but then was intentionally abusing those tools in order to coercive control their partner in a relationship.
But at the end of the day, not everybody is cut from the same cloth. There could be people that go to therapy that are still wankers, women and men, right? You're still a dickhead. You're still going to do the same thing.
Yeah.
There are people that go to therapy that they come out the other side like Jesus. There are people that will never need to go to therapy and they're still wonderful people. Like, I think just putting that limitation on yourself for dating that you have to have gone to therapy, exactly like Keisha said, that doesn't align with them being an amazing person that's emotionally available and not going to cheat on you. Like,
in terms of talking about the ways in which we can abuse terminology, I think we see it beyond just dating though. I think we see it with the overuse of the word toxic, with the word trauma, with the word triggered. Like
narcissist, sociopath.
Yeah, we might have a negative experience with someone who has treated us badly and then we've instantly blanketed them as a narcissist, which is a pathological diagnosis. Like, you can't just have one interaction with someone who cheats on you or treats you badly. That doesn't instantly mean that they are narcissistic or a narcissist. I do think we overuse these words. For me, even in the industry that we work in, we have to be so careful with the things that we say from time to time. And we will often go, oh, should we put a trigger warning on this? Should we talk about the trauma that's associated with this? And I think we've almost become too trigger warning happy in a lot of ways, because something that someone might not want to listen to because it makes them feel uncomfortable or it's like not a nice listen, that's not necessarily a trigger. Like, a trigger is someone who has experienced a deeply traumatic event and will be triggered back to that moment. And I know that that's obviously something that is very real for some people, but there's been lots of studies around how trigger warnings are actually more negative, and trigger warnings themselves can more negatively impact a greater population than not having it in the first place. And this is not, look, I'm not saying that trigger warnings don't have a purpose. They absolutely do. And some people have experienced real trauma in their life, like truly horrific things. But it kind of is like point in case. It almost seems these days as though everybody has experienced trauma. Like, we use the word trauma to literally describe everything.
I think that's like the situation that everyone's experiences are subjective, right? So someone's trauma will be subjective, but a term like triggering is actually an objective word. And so the overuse of it, and I'm even guilty of this myself. I mean, on this podcast over the years, I would have described one of my ex's behaviors as narcissistic. And I think as we've kind of gone on and spoken to experts, I've actually realized that by me labeling that person as a narcissist, it actually has diluted the experience of someone who has actually experienced narcissistic abuse. And I really regret that. Like, I really regret amounting my experiences to something that someone really has been damaged by. And I think that's the problem with the overuse of these words.
But
I think
I feel the same about the word trauma. And you say that that's like a subjective experience. I think like people have gone through hardships and they've experienced things that have been difficult or they have been challenging to overcome. But there are people who have experienced trauma and then there is people who have experienced something challenging in their life. And conflating the two, all that does is it minimizes the person's use of a very strong word when they've actually experienced something that was truly traumatic to them.
Yeah, but Keisha, I mean, I disagree with what you've said because he might be a lesser narcissist than someone else. It doesn't mean he's not a narcissist.
Yeah, we know that relationship you had. He was a narcissist.
Like my ex with the double life and that did all that crazy things, he was also a narcissist. Was he on the same level as yours? No, he was worse. But I don't look at you and say, oh, because you use that term, it takes away from anyone else. Like it's a spectrum, right? It's a spectrum.
I think it's about diluting the experiences of people who do experience, and it's not just about narcissism. You know, a lot of people say things like, I see it on TikTok all the time. Oh, I have trauma from one of my past relationships because my ex used to not write back to me for 24 hours and it would give me anxiety and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, let's actually unpack the words we're using here. You said I have trauma from a past relationship. To me, I just think that we've kind of gone a little bit too heavy into this therapy speak when we're using it in such a liberal way because people have genuinely experienced really, really awful and traumatizing events in relationships, especially, you know, we talk about domestic violence a lot on this podcast. I just think that perhaps as a way to try and, you know, we love to put a label on everything. We love to have everything categorized. We love to have these buzzwords and also words like this, especially when you're in therapy and you start using them in your general vocabulary. It implies a certain level of emotional intelligence. And I just think the pendulum might have swung a little too far. Like
it's just overuse of the word. It's lost its meaning. It has an oversaturation. And I read a really interesting article from a teacher, a primary school teacher. No, sorry, high school teacher, but early, like 12, 13, 14. She wanted to stay anonymous because she didn't want it to get back to her kids. But she said she cannot believe the uses of these terms that she hears amongst preteens. So she says she has a really hard time trying to be delicate and understand and guide them, but also say you can't be using those words. So she's like, when they're referring to a breakup and they're 13 and 14, they're saying he's definitely a sociopath. Like, what a narcissist. Because they're seeing these terms on TikTok. When they break up with friends, they're using the same kind of words. When it's not, when like we would go back to our time,
Didn't even know what it was.
It's just a fight with a friend, and you'll probably make up in a couple of weeks.
Yeah,
but
someone can just be a dickhead. They don't have to be emotionally abusive. Someone can just be a wanker today. Doesn't mean that they're a sociopath.
You can be a fuckwit and not a narcissist.
Yeah.
Like these things are not interchangeable. But I found that really interesting because that is who we are setting up. That is the future generation that don't quite grasp the true meaning of what these terms are because they have become standard vocabulary.
And interchangeable. Like they've become interchangeable with just normal experiences that we are all going to go through as part of like figuring out how to socially exchange with other people.
And I know we were talking about it, Laura, the use of the terms that we throw around now. Like when we have an argument with our partner, it's not an argument, it's gaslighting.
Oh, yeah. And look, it's a good way to win an argument, put it that way.
Oh, yeah.
If you
foolproof.
It's a bit of a trump card.
If you want to win an argument, tell your partner they're gaslighting you. Like it won't go down well. You'll win, but you won't make up. You won't resolve anything.
It's like I saw you sucking that dick. You're like,
No, I
don't
didn't.
gaslight me. There was no dick in my mouth.
But, you know, like gaslighting is a real and intentional lie to try and distort someone else's perception of what they experienced. It is an intentful act. Whereas like we are all going to have disagreements and arguments with our partners where we don't see things the same way because our experience of what we just did and went through or the way we spoke to each other, our perceptions around it were different. And it's funny because like Matt and I will sometimes, and you know, like I'm not sitting up on my pedestal here being like, oh, we shouldn't do this because we all do it. We've all called our ex-boyfriends narcissists. We've all told someone that they're gaslighting us when they're probably not. Matt and I will have an argument and either he'll say it or I'll say it. You're gaslighting me. And what we are meaning by that is I'm trying to convey how I experience something and you're telling me I'm wrong. Right. But when you actually unpick it and try and like get down to the root of it, really, it's just two people who actually love each other, who have a lot of respect for each other, but we both experienced that fight or whatever the thing was that set us off differently. We both had a different perception of what happened. And so neither one of us is right. We're probably right 50-50. One person probably said something with a bit of tone. The other person probably had a bit of a fucking face or did something that made the other person feel inferior. And then it kicked off. It doesn't mean that just because we disagree with each other's perception that we're gaslighting each other either. And that's really important. And sometimes I have to stop myself and I'm like, he is not gaslighting you. He just had a different experience and he's fucking wrong.
Yeah. But it's funny because we can sit here, on our high horse and preach and say it's overused. But like you just said, we're all guilty of overusing it. But it's something that we need to start to be conscious about.
Yeah. And I think that's the big thing. It's not like none of this is criticism. It's all just like awareness around what's the behaviors that we do and are we contributing to something that's like as a bigger picture could be slightly problematic.
I will throw myself under the bus. The theme of Ben's and my relationship is literally, this is how you made me feel when you said that. And then the other person says, but I didn't mean it like that. I didn't mean to make you feel like that. And I think that comes down to a bit of maybe a language barrier. It's not the language barrier because his English is wonderful, but when things are directly translated from, how he grew up into English, it doesn't come out sometimes the same way.
Like an interpretation barrier.
So I'll be like, I can't believe you said that. And he's like, but I didn't mean it like that. And I said, yeah, but this is how you made me feel. He's like, but that wasn't the intention. And that's where we end up getting stuck. Because I'm like, whether it was your intention or not, I'm upset. And he's like, okay, I'm sorry, but can you understand why I said it? And that's the back and forth. And we've got to an amazing place now where we barely argue about anything because everything, we just blame it on the language barrier. If one of us fucks up, we're like, oh, it's the old language barrier.
It's interesting that you bring up perception though, because to bring it back to the Love is Blind thing that we initially were talking about.
Producer Keisha, she's like, let's
Keisha's
get back on track.
Get back on track, you motherfuckers. Why are we talking about your argument styles?
I just think it's interesting because I'm so all about therapy. I'm all about people going and sorting their mental health. I've had diagnosed mental health issues for years and years and years. I'm all about it. And I think the reason I feel the need to say that is because I've spoken in a very negative way. Because what I've referred to, I think, is the use of therapy to shift the perception of the way that someone else sees you. And that's what I have a bit of a problem with, not the actual therapy or the fact that people are trying to work on themselves. So in the situation that unfolded with Stephen and Monica, what I thought was the most interesting part is that he kind of drip fed these few things about therapy. And I feel as though he did that in a way to change the way that she saw him. I thought that he did it in a way to kind of prove that he was emotionally mature, that he was willing to work on relationships if they had problems, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely. And I think it's something that some people, it's very manipulative. And I'm not saying he's done it manipulatively.
Yeah, I don't even know if he did it deliberately.
Yeah. But
I think he did.
I think there are people out there who use their shortcomings or the things that they've done in past relationships and they use honesty around it as a way of showing vulnerability and gaining trust.
The reason I think that this was pure manipulation in this particular scene is because he went for the maximum amount of emotion for the minimal amount of hurt infliction. And what I mean by that is he was like, I need to talk to you about cheating, something I did. I'm so not proud of it. Like, it was horrible what I did, but I just didn't feel good enough. And I'm going to therapy now, but I messaged a girl. Like, his cheating was that he messaged a girl. So he's trying to manipulate Monica to be like, I can't believe I stooped so low, but I'm working on it. So she's thinking, fuck, what's he done? And then he's done this bait and switch. So she's like, in her own head, her internal monologue would be like, wow, like that's what you think is bad? You categorize bad as just messaging a girl, knowing that probably highly likely Monica has been cheated on horrifically, which she actually has. So now her unconscious bias is like, wow, he thinks this is the worst thing he could do is message a girl and he's working on that. Bingo, I've got a catch. So that's what I think he has done.
Look at that. Like,
that is very interesting.
Detective Brittany on the case.
Yeah, maximum emotion for the minimal amount of pain infliction.
That's really interesting. Last night we put up a couple polls on the Life Uncut Instagram story, and one of the questions was, have you ever dated someone who used the fact that they went to therapy as a way to prove their emotional maturity? And only 11% of people said that they had, which felt quite low. We also put a little question box on there for people to kind of share their experiences if they wanted to. And the most interesting thing, I thought this was really, really funny. The most common response that we got was that people had in fact done that themselves. Like they had, I don't know if they had realized that they had done it until they'd read the question, but a lot of people were like, oh, wow, I've just realized I actually do this.
I'm the problem.
I use it as a way.
At least they're self-aware.
Totally. Maybe because they've been in therapy.
I thought this was interesting. A lot of responses we received was for the people who had, they acted as though it meant that they were above being questioned or held accountable because they had done the work and they knew better. So it gave them this sense of superiority within the relationship because they couldn't be wrong because they'd been to therapy.
I think that actually goes back to what you were saying about gaslighting. I think a word like that is authoritative.
100%.
But people use it also as an excuse as to why they are doing bad behavior. So in a relationship, like as long as you're going to therapy, you can use that. I'm working on it. I'm in therapy. Like I'm trying. I know I've been an asshole for a year, but I'm in therapy, so I'm trying. It doesn't mean anything. Like therapy only works if you want it to work. You have to be so proactive. Just going there so that you can throw the term around doesn't mean anything.
Funny you mentioned excuses, Britt, because that was the last slide that we put up last night with a poll. We asked if people use their time in therapy as an excuse to avoid accountability. Again, a pretty low percentage. It was only 14% who had, but here are some of the responses. He went to therapy for professional evidence that he was fucked up and couldn't help mistreating me.
Wow.
My ex started therapy as a way to keep me after I found out that he had cheated on me. I've experienced that. Used to say things like, I brought this up with my therapist and they agreed with me. My therapist said that it's likely you have validation issues from your childhood and that's why you are needy.
Wow. Imagine being diagnosed by someone secondhand because they've talked about you in therapy. Thanks for that, pal.
Cheers for that. Got daddy issues. Apparently, my ex's therapist told him that he cheated on me because he wasn't loved enough as a child. And he used to use it as an excuse to always be the victim and repeated that I simply wouldn't understand.
Yeah.
Speaking of victim, the only thing that we haven't touched on yet that grinds my gears, I get it. I get that there are people out there that are going to live like this. But his comment at the start where he said, she just was too good for me. Like I
felt like I didn't deserve her.
I felt like I didn't deserve her, which is why I cheated on her. I just find that 99% of the time such a piss weak fake excuse. Like if you truly didn't think you deserved someone and you had this absolute queen that wants to be with you and does everything right, you worship her. Like you worship your relationship. I think it's an excuse that's similar to it's not you, it's me. Like it's like I just don't want to be with you. I cheated on you because I don't really particularly want to be with you right now. It's not because you thought she was too good for you. I'm sorry, but I'm calling bullshit on whatever his name is, Stephen.
Yeah, I mean, like it's punishing someone for your own inadequacies is what it is. But I think that this would be more common than what maybe we're giving credit to. And what I mean by that is for anyone who has been cheated on, the two very common explanations for it is one, I didn't feel good enough or worthy enough. And also the second one is I didn't feel loved enough or connect enough in the relationship. There is always some sort of reasoning. I mean, the third one is just that I'm lacking in empathy and I'm a sociopath and I like to, once again, throwing terms around. But it's lacking in the ability to have empathy or care for your relationship because that does exist as well. But it's hard to unpack which one of those things is the reason. And maybe it's a little bit of a combination of all of them sometimes. But on your point, Britt, I agree. I think if I was in a relationship now with somebody who used that as an excuse, part of me, I think it does muster sympathy. It does make you be like, no, but you are good enough for this relationship. It makes you, as the person who has had something done to you, who has been cheated on or whatever, it makes you want to fight for the relationship, makes you want to almost fight to prove to that person that what you have together is worthy of them.
And that they are worthy.
And that they're worthy of it as well. It would make me question now, because of what I know I want in my life, it would make me question whether or not I had the capacity or the drive to try and prove to someone that they're worthy of the relationship that they're in. Like, do I have that mental load and care to do that? Not anymore.
I also don't want to take away the fact that actually happens. Like it does happen, and people that don't feel good enough, it is a real reason. Like I do want to validate it. I just think it gets thrown around too much as well. I've had people say that to me, and I have had that feeling as well. Like I was in a relationship, I remember, I've spoken about it a few years ago, very early on. We dated for 3 months when I was living in England. I was so into it. He was really into me. It was going really well. And then I found out that his family were billionaires. Like they were in the top richest people. And he didn't tell me that. I just did a stalk. Like I just Googled him, because I was like, wanted to find out more because he was every time I would ask questions, he was a bit elusive, and it was obviously because he wanted to protect the fact that his family had money, which I totally get. And the second I found out, I self-sabotaged that relationship because I didn't feel good enough. I was like,
But you didn't cheat on the guy.
no, but what I'm saying is I can understand when people say they get that feeling of not feeling good enough. And I was like, I will not fit into that life. I'm not good enough to be in that world. And I had that feeling. But it didn't relay into cheating and me being a dickhead. I was just like, oh, this isn't the relationship for me. There's part of me that regrets, would love $1 billion, but I've got Ben, so we won't go into that too much.
I think what I hate about that the most, though, is that so often, and I am going to be talking in like gender stereotypes here, so often I think men use that as a weapon against successful women. Oh, you're achieving so much and I just didn't feel like I was good enough in this relationship, and that's why I was seeking validation from other girls on Instagram, or like I get really frustrated because I see that narrative play out a lot. I've seen it happen in my own life, when I've had various successes, and the people that I was dating were really envious of that and used it as a way to like justify their shitty behavior, which only made me feel worse because I was like, well, I'm trying to strive and succeed, and you're using this as a reason for why you've cheated on me. Like, you've implied that I'm at fault for that.
I think that in order to like wrap this up, one thing that is very evident is like, although therapy is great, it certainly isn't the green flag in dating. It definitely doesn't mean that someone's got everything figured out. It certainly doesn't mean that that person is emotionally or mentally at a place of nirvana where you've hit the jackpot. And I think as well, like if somebody is bringing it up early in your dating or using it as a way to garner sympathy for things that they have done in the past, or as an excuse of how that they've bettered themselves from the things they've done in their past, don't discredit it. I'm not saying that everything is something to be like alert and alarmed, but like, have the blinkers well and truly aware of what could be happening and how those conversations could be unfolding.
Well, I haven't finished it yet, so I don't know if Stephen and Monica end up together. I don't know if this little tidbit of therapy manipulation is going to like get him the home run, but I'll keep you posted. And if you guys have watched it, don't send me spoilers. It's time for Accidentally Unfiltered. Now, I have a long one, but it is brilliant. Back in 2008, I was 18 and lived in the Central Coast, but we used to go to Fanny's nightclub in Newcastle every weekend.
Fanny's nightclub. I've been there.
I used to live in Newey, frequented Fanny's.
Take that
the wrong way.
It was my first ever nightclub.
Yeah. Fanny's. Imagine being the marketing guy who was like, you know what we should call this place? Fanny's nightclub.
It was called something else.
They've changed it now.
Yeah.
They
doubt.
refurbed, and it's called the Argyle House now, which is nowhere near as fun, but probably slightly classier.
Okay.
I'm going to Fanny's tonight.
My church used to be next door to it.
From Fanny's to church.
Yeah, sometimes on a Sunday
from
morning
church to Fanny's.
there would still be people trickling out.
Would they be going to confessional?
Okay, let's stay on track. We're at Fanny's. My best friend's boyfriend met us there one night with a couple of his mates. I saw one of them and was in immediate love. The feeling was mutual and we made out the entire night. He lived on the northern beaches of Sydney, but his family also owned a holiday house right on the beach at the Central Coast, which coincidentally was just down the road from my house. He and I made plans to meet up the following day at the beach right in front of his place. I was fashionably early, which an hour or so. It's a bit creepy, sitting out the front of his house for an hour. I was fashionably early. I texted him to let him know I was there and to take his time. He responded immediately, apologising that his dad had asked him to go back to Sydney for the day to run errands, that he'd be back later in the afternoon, and he said he'd make it up to me by taking me to dinner that night. An hour or so goes by, and then I see a large group of girls congregate on the beach in front of his house. I didn't think much of it until one of them walked up the stairs and came back to the beach with him.
But she just said, I'm here.
But it was an hour had gone past. He went out with her into the ocean and they started making out. I sat and watched for far too long.
Oh, no.
My heart was breaking.
Bet you this guy was in therapy.
We should be. I really thought I had met the most amazing guy. So before I left the beach, I walked up past where they were swimming and I yelled out from the shore, "Nice one, dickhead," and I flipped him the bird.
Oh, no.
And then I walked off. All of these girls cracked up laughing at me. He looked shocked. His girlfriend looked fucking puzzled. I was like, yeah, I really showed him. By the time I walked home, I had a message from him. "Hey, how was the beach? Are you still there? I'm leaving Sydney now. I'll be home in an hour. Can't wait to see you." He mustn't have seen me from the ocean. And I thought,
I feel
this-
sick. I know what's happening.
I thought the height of this motherfucker. I texted the most awful message back saying, I saw you at the beach. I'm not dumb. Delete my number. I'm blocking you, etc. He responded, what? I've been in Sydney. I blocked him, deleted, forgot about him. A year later, my friend's boyfriend asked why I ghosted the guy and that he always asks how I am. And I told him what happened and he absolutely lost it laughing. He was cracking up and I'm like, wow, I'm glad you think this is funny. He proceeded to tell me that he has an identical twin brother.
I knew it.
The brother has tattoos and the twin doesn't. But how was I supposed to know that? Because I had never seen him with his shirt off. I had already been in a relationship for 7 months by this stage with a different guy. But I was curious if this was the truth. And then I knew I had fucked up. Yep, Googled Facebook and searched for him. Identical twin brother.
Oh my God.
I love that she flipped him the bird. Yeah, good one, dickhead.
But imagine the girlfriend.
like,
Imagine the girlfriend being like, explain yourself.
Totally.
Who the fuck was that?
The girlfriend would have just been so confused. Okay, surely the guy would have realized that she had seen the brother. Like, come on. He would have known because he would have been like, what are you talking about? I'm in Sydney. And then he would have gone, oh, that's right. I'm an identical twin. And my brother has a girlfriend. Like, surely he's not that dumb.
But you know what? She did say that like they've met up sporadically over the years and they still have big feelings for each other. But their stars haven't aligned.
If you feel like that and you've got a boyfriend of 7 months, you fucking just give it a shot.
Well, this was a long time ago. This was back in 2018. But maybe what they need is fannies. Maybe they need for fannies to reopen so they can rekindle the love.
Sounds like she needs a bit of dick, to be honest. Sorry, continue. That was too far.
All right. On that note.
That's not okay. Sorry, everyone. If you've made it this far, you're in the fold.
All right.
You know.
Suck and sweet.
My suck for the week. Look, I know that there's rules and we're not supposed to say things we've already said, but there is a 2-meter long diamond python in the roof and it's pregnant and having babies.
Fair.
I'd say that that's pretty bad. Doesn't get much worse than that. Oh, no, actually, my other suck is, so we were cleaning up the garden, just trying to make it so that it's actually usable. Hopefully it'll be done by Christmas. I don't think it will be, but I'm trying. Okay, so we're cleaning up the garden and I got this scratch. It's so nothing. It's the most nothing scratch in the whole world. But it did bleed for a little while. But the scratch was on a rusty, dirty nail.
Oh, no.
And so then I had to go and get a tetanus shot. So I had to leave the work site and go and get a tetanus shot. And if you've had a tetanus shot, they make you really tired. And then I had to use a broom for 2 days.
You're
and
such a hard labourer with your
know.
snake catching,
Guys.
brooming and tetanus needling.
I had to dust and like my shoulders hurt and my hips hurt. My back hurts. I could have tetanus. Could die.
You're fine.
I'm fine.
You could also get eaten by a diamond python, but anyway.
I literally went to the medical centre in Milton and she was like, I don't think it would be possible to get tetanus from such a shallow scratch.
She's like, it hasn't even actually broken the surface.
She said, just so you know how tetanus forms, it's like asphoric. I don't know. It's like a word that she used. I didn't know what it was. But basically, it's like it needs to embed itself into your muscle. And she's like,
Is it anaerobic?
anaerobic.
Yeah,
She's
gotcha.
like, that is very superficial, but I'll give it to you anyway.
I feel like your cat could have scratched you deeper than that.
Yeah, but my cat's not a rusty, dirty nail that's been in the earth.
Your cat's dead. The python ate it.
My cat is in a python's stomach. Okay, well, my sweet is.
You don't have one.
My sweet is that the tiles went into the downstairs bathroom. That's a fucking sweet.
I did see it. Looks good.
The reno is taking shape. And every time I go into the house now, I have these moments of like, I can see what is going to be. Whereas before I was like, I have no idea how this shit show is going to turn out. But now I can kind of see it coming together.
Okay, my suck this week, I had a really, really great week, so I don't have any sucks. My suck is going to sound so dumb. It is a public holiday today when we're recording in New South Wales.
And we're at work.
We got to work early. We are working all day. We don't get the public holiday, but that's not even the suck. The
because we
suck
would
was-
never leave you guys hanging. So we work all the time.
Yeah. But the suck is that I got here, didn't have a lot of sleep because I'm a supportive girlfriend. It's Ben's match day, which he plays at 1:30 in the morning. So I was watching that. Then we got up at 6, blah, 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 blah. The suck is that there is no coffee shop open in any vicinity of our work today. So I always get to work and get my coffee. I felt like I needed it more than ever today. Everything's closed.
I made you a really delicious one though.
So bad. I think it's off. I think the milk's off. We made one at work with this little coffee machine.
So bad.
My sweet for the week is, it hasn't really happened yet, but Delilah has like a photo shoot tomorrow. Delilah has a job that she's doing. And,
Hock her out.
and part of the job is she has to wear like the cutest outfit that you've ever seen. So I can't wait to show you guys because she looks proper lit. Like she looks like a rock star.
Cute.
I'll show you.
I can't wait to
camera.
see.
Yeah.
She looks, my sweet is that my dog looks lit tomorrow. Oh, stop it. Stop.
You need to see me.
I don't know. She looks like Elton John, if that's what you mean by a rock star. Like,
She's giving Elton John.
She
Look
looks-
how cute she is.
she looks like a 78-year-old man, but
She looks like a saxophonist. If a dog could be like a jazz star, she looks like a jazz star.
very cute. All right. Well, look, guys, that is it from us. If you have loved the episode, go and leave a review. You can join the Facebook discussion group at Life Uncut Discussion Group. You can follow us on TikTok. There's lots of ways that you can be within the Life Uncut orbit. Get into the ecosystem. Insert yourself.
And also, please vote for us for the podcast awards.
Yes.
We've only got one more week of voting, and then you'll never hear from us again.
We've got like 5 days, I think. And so, yeah, look, if you've made it this far in the episode, you owe it to us because you've just gotten a lot of content for free. I know you had to listen to a couple of ads, but all we ask for is listen to 2 ads and vote. The end.
So that is the Australian Podcast Awards website. Listener's Choice is what we're asking you to vote for. So you just type in Life Uncut to Listener's Choice, press go, and then go to your email and validate the vote, and we'll really appreciate it. We'll link it in the show notes. It's also in our Insta bio just to make it super easy for you. And don't forget, tell your mum, tell your dad, tell your dog, tell your friends, and share the love because we love love.